Okay, so it's good to be recording again. This is going to be a recap of 8 and 9 leading up to the final finale episode. We'll probably do a discussion on that at some point as well.
I think mostly that you predicted the whole thing. 8 also was the one where Logan got better, right?
Yeah, so his spatula flipping turned into him being able to do the lacrosse move, which is actually fairly difficult, and it's only been done in the NHL like 3 times. So that's a difficult move that doesn't get attempted often, let alone successfully done.
I will say with Nick Gull, he scored at the beginning, right? But then he was talking to the coffee girl about it, and he was like talking about the 5-hole, and I had to go back and double check to be like, did he actually get 5-hole, or is he just saying hockey? Because I thought that dialogue was a little bit forced, but he did in fact hit the 5-hole.
Well, because it was the kind of thing where he couldn't elevate it. That's why he was playing it off like, yeah, I went 5-hole because top corner is played out. I thought it was kind of funny. I mean, he was kind of doing his usual like self-deprecating humor against himself. He knows that he could barely lift it off the ice, and it happened to fluke 5-hole. And so he's like, yeah, I went 5-hole just because I felt like top corner was played out. I thought that was fine.
Right. I thought it was funny. Like but then I was like, wait, is that what he actually got? And so I remember I had to go back and check that he actually did.
It did kind of look low blocker on the initial shot, but I think it did kind of go 5-hole. But yeah, I mean, the optics of the shot weren't great, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's fitting. Like, they make a guy that's not portrayed as like the greatest player, where they're just on that much of a winning streak, where he gets out at the end of the game and ends up getting one.
And of course, the callback to D3 of, don't you ever do that to me again.
My main notes from episode 8 were, I was happy that they gave Logan a little bit more of a role. They gave him a little bit more dialogue, and I liked the fact that they had kind of the built-in message of Podcast Kid not taking for granted how much he's blessed in his life, even though he doesn't feel like he has great character traits or great physical traits. He does have blessings that a lot of people, including himself, obviously take for granted, and certain people that have subjectively great physical traits or personality traits, sometimes all they want is some things that are taken for granted, like a stable family environment. I thought that was an important, good message, where they were both kind of jealous of each other, and it's the kind of thing where it just kind of reinforces that people should communicate. Instead of being bitter and petty, they should literally just communicate, because in like 3 minutes, they came to an understanding of each other and everything was solved. So I thought that was an important thing. That might have been the best little dialogue out of the whole show so far.
That is one thing that I appreciate about this one and the next episode. Because it seems like in so many stories, the whole comedy of it is that it's miscommunication, right? That it's like, you could have just talked about this and it would have been fixed. And I appreciate that they're showing it in there, because like that is a positive thing that Disney is doing, I think, in this case.
A negative I have from pretty much still going back the entire series, especially 8 and 9, was they're kind of giving Sam the Finn treatment from Star Wars, where they kind of tried to make it out like he was going to be a big deal in the first episode or 2, and then he's kind of been relegated to a side character. We've talked about that a lot amongst ourselves, and I don't know if we've brought it up on the podcast at all, but for those that haven't seen Star Wars, essentially they tried to tease Finn like he was going to be a Force-sensitive stormtrooper, or like a lightsaber-wielding stormtrooper in the first episode, or the first one of the sequel trilogy. And then he basically was relegated to screaming Rey. And so that's kind of similarly, they tried to tease Sam like he was going to be this crazy, well, not necessarily crazy, but he was going to be this like exciting, doing a lot of stunts, and they kind of made it seem like he was going to be a featured player. And then they gave him a little bit of a trope in that he was disappointed in Evan for quitting the team because it made him feel like he didn't matter or whatever. But they've still kind of relegated him to the sidelines. He'll have like a couple words here and there for comedic relief, and he's not ever really featured on ice or at any point, and that's kind of frustrating.
Yeah.
We got what we wanted with Logan a little bit. He obviously got more dialogue and whatnot. I hope that Sam plays more of a role. I get the feeling he probably won't. That's a negative pattern of Disney, is they try to create this inclusivity narrative, but characters of like minority, they just get relegated to the background eventually. So that's kind of annoying. And Sam did seem like an original, interesting take on a hockey player and just a character, and I'm left wanting more with him.
Yeah, I agree. And there's not many episodes left to put him in, because it seems like of the main kids, there's also those two brothers, and they haven't really done anything, but they weren't really introduced as much the same way Sam was.
If this show does get picked up for additional seasons, I guess they could maybe make up for it retroactively. I also think the pandemic made it difficult. It sounds like the cast really didn't ever get a chance to interact with each other on set or off set. It seems like they don't really know each other. I know Emilio has come out and said that's one thing he wishes was different about this show. When they were making the original trilogy movies, he was able to hang out with the kids and really get to know and bond with the kids. And the cast was able to really become friends with each other and bond. And then you kind of believed that they were all good friends because it came off on screen. Their friendship looked natural on screen because clearly they were pretty good friends off set and off screen. So it might be a little bit awkward. I mean, they might have just made the most of the situation and the cards they were dealt. And so I do kind of hope it gets picked up and maybe we get better content in the future, just with more regular type situation.
Well, if they're in a quarantine bubble together, they should be able to hang out. But I could tell even when the food is served and stuff, in the next episode they had the boxes of cereal, which is at a hotel you would normally have the cereal dispenser, I feel or that's what I'm used to for my whole life, but now they have individual things to eliminate contact. So I noticed those COVID touches as well. I liked the inclusion of the dirty socks superstition, just because I know that's common with hockey players.
And that's a callback to the first Mighty Ducks movie where Charlie and Gordon were at his house, and he's like, did you know that the Minnesota North Stars wore the same underwear all through the playoffs last year? So I'm going to do that.
Right.
Might be slightly more realistic. I do know there are people that reuse the same socks, but they don't wear them during the day. They just only use them during hockey. So that is not super uncommon to just only have specific socks you wear to skate in.
He said he forgot to bring new socks, so then he just wore his old socks again. But I wish people would start more hygienic ones. Even the playoff beer thing, that's fine, whatever. But it's all of these things are not doing something. Why can't it be oh, I ate 7 carrot sticks before a game, so let me eat carrot sticks again or something. I shampooed my hair, so let me do that every game.
Well, they did kind of do that. She was giving them those kale shakes.
But that's not part of the superstition. That's what I mean.
I think maybe it was part of her superstition. She was constantly feeding them all this superfoods, and they were acting like it was torture. But I mean, realistically, that wasn't that bad of a thing from Alex's standpoint. That kind of leads me into my next note, was that I predicted that she was going to become a win at all costs type coach, and they kind of portrayed her that way. But suggesting that the kids eat kale shakes and drink these nutritional protein shakes before and after skates, that's not that big of a deal. And also doing more skating and conditioning in practice. I mean, usually you don't do a ton of skating and conditioning during the regular season just because you don't want to be dead for games. But I mean, at the same time, doing a lot of skating, the best teams, the good teams, are the best skating and conditioned teams. It's not that bad that she's making them skate and be good skaters and work on skill work and skating work.
No, of course not. And even at the beginning, when Evan was okay, it's not fun to lose all the time. We have to practice at least some. I get that, but I thought that plot-wise it was done well, where it was Sophie's parents kind of influencing, because that's how the Ducks were. And so and I think it was a little overkill, and that was the point. It's fine to be let's have a healthy snack, but then the brachos and spachos and stuff, I get that that's annoying.
I noticed that the hockey was noticeably crisper and looked more realistic. more so than it's been. It still wasn't good, but it was better than it's been all season to this point. So that kind of leads me into episode 9. And I'm jumping ahead in the episode a little bit, but my biggest criticism with 9 was they were reaching way too hard to manufacture conflict within the episode and basically just, I guess, within the show. What I mean by that is, like, the fact that the American Youth Hockey Association doesn't even know their own rules that they're allegedly trying to, like, enforce, I guess, with making a ban about Gordon Bombay. That was so dumb to me. The fact that they're saying all of a sudden he can't coach because he has some thing from 10 years ago at the NCAA. Well, one, if that were a thing, then he would have never been able to start coaching. Like, they would have done something about it game 1 or whenever he went behind the bench the first time. So it's really their own indiscretion. And so therefore that should cancel out any type ban, because the fact that he was allowed to coach at all ever, they can't just retroactively go back and be like, oh yeah, you never should have been able to do that, so you're out.
Well, I think it was probably like they were kind of being forced by like Duck's parents or something like that. And that's why, like, there's probably some coercion there. But also, I mean, I guess I can slightly buy that if they didn't actually check out the team, which is what won them won Alex the case or whatever, then I guess they wouldn't know. But yeah, it seems like we're missing a lot of paperwork along the way.
Gordon would have to register and certify as a head coach, because you have to get USA Hockey certified every year, players and coaches. So if there was any type of red flag, it would have come up within him being registered. You can't be behind the bench in any capacity unless you're registered and certified. That would have been brought to the attention immediately. And so now they can't just go back and be like, oh yeah, by the way, you can't be coaching because of this thing, this vague thing with the NCAA over a decade ago that nobody really cares about. And this isn't NCAA hockey, so it shouldn't matter in the first place.
I also thought it was interesting that his whole story changed. Not that it matters, because, like, whatever he did is what he did, right? Like, it doesn't. But when he told it the first time, it was like, oh, I was just helping a kid because I wanted to help. And now it's like, oh, I was helping a kid because I wanted to recruit him. And, like, the way he explains it in this one makes it sound makes sense that, okay, that's, like, not good, but, like, why wouldn't he say, oh, I just wanted to help him out because he needed help, versus, like, oh, I wanted to win at all costs, other than it fitting, like, the narrative of the show or whatever.
Well, I think he was telling a half-truth to Alex because he has a crush on Alex, and when he was telling it to Coach T, he was telling it from a more relatable standpoint, because Coach T is an established youth coach and a fairly successful youth coach. He could be getting looks from NCAA programs or whatever, or could be moving on from the Ducks at some point. Bombay was trying to just be a good guy and give him the honest truth to try to help him, because it basically hinted like Coach T was becoming, it was kind of humanizing Coach T in a way. I mean, then Coach T reverts back to using it as a way to get ahead, and he's now has this newfound information.
At the beginning, when he was like, you can't get in my head, Bombay, like, he literally, like, he seemed clueless. So then I feel like this was like, I don't think he was trying to get the information on purpose, but then when he got the information, it was like the next morning that it was like, hey, I could use this, versus, like, I don't think he was like that creative about it.
I think Bombay's been in his head the whole time. I think that was why he was trying to posture like he wasn't going to be in his head, but meanwhile he has.
Right, I get that, but then later, I don't think that was like pre-planned, where it was like, ooh, I'm going to sit next to him and get him to spill his secrets. I think it just, like, he stumbled upon it.
Bombay kind of accidentally incriminated himself by just trying to be a good guy and give Coach T advice, and then Coach T realized, well, I can use this because he really is in his head, and the don't bothers really are in his head, and he is insecure.
It's weird to me that they're, like, so far away, because it seems like all of the teams at States are staying at the same hotel. That's why they have a party. But then why is the hotel so far from the rink? And then also, because it seems like you would just pick a hotel that was close by. And also, why are there no, like, chaperones? Because it seemed like, unless Bombay was driving the bus, he wasn't even on the bus with them. So you just have a bus full of 12-year-olds and no adults.
Bombay was on the bus with them. He was just in the front.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
Bombay
still,
sat
I
at...
think
That was
only
why
one.
Bombay went, because it was going to be Alex, and then they kind of fired
Yeah,
Alex.
but even her by herself, that doesn't seem like enough. Plus, parents, like, I feel like that would be hard. Like, you know, parents trust her, right? Because she's also a mom. But it seems, and I'm only saying this too because I work with parents, or like, you know, I deal with parents at work. But like, that's weird to like flip it from like, okay, I guess we trust all of our kids with this mom to like just this coach. Not that he's not trustworthy, but it seems like there should be other chaperones because that's a lot to pin on a person.
I'm guessing that not all the teams stayed there. I'm guessing the 2 representatives from District 5 were staying at that hotel, and they just found a halfway point for both teams. I don't know if the league is paying for their stay or whatnot, but it didn't seem like there were any other teams there besides those 2 teams. And then it seemed like that Xander guy was there for separate reasons. I don't think he was on a different team. I was wondering about that. That was just kind of random that she's like got some guy to have a crush on while they're there for a day or two. And then
Yeah,
I'm guessing states are in a different part of Minnesota, so that's why both teams had probably separate buses. And then they decided to throw a party together.
I hated every storyline with the girls. Except I liked that they got to go to the back of the bus. But like, I feel like that was so, the dialogue was weird. The taking the case of makeup was weird. And also I noticed Maya kind of stole a line from Alex where she was like, this isn't the plan, guys. What about the plan? And it's like, yeah, did you forget that was Alex in episode 8? I thought it was kind of funny when they were talking about the emojis. It just reminded me of The Circle. I don't know if you watched The Circle on Netflix, but when they have to say all of their messages, and so they're like, say this, and then give me like the glasses emoji and 3 fires and the dancing girl and the rainbow heart. And so it's like funny when people call out their emojis, and I guess that's normal now, but the fact 3 fire emojis, I just thought it was funny.
So my other talking point, this kind of harkens back to that whole court case, and I kind of got nostalgia from D3 where he kind of gave his same speech that he gave to Charlie at Eden Hall towards the end of D3 when Charlie had left the team and Gordon gets him up at 6 a.m. and takes him to the rink. He essentially gave the judges the same exact speech from inside the trophy hallway at Eden Hall where he says, I was a hot shot just like you, Charlie. I loved hockey, and then my dad died, and so I became this terrible person, this alcoholic, and my life was spiraling out of control. And then this wonderful thing happened, Charlie. I got arrested. I was sentenced to community service. And then there you were, Charlie and the Ducks. Take out Charlie and the Ducks, insert random 12-year-old kids that he's known for 3 weeks. There they were, life-altering kids. He doesn't even have an entire mini Junior Olympics or an entire Pee Wee season with them. He's been their coach for 2 games, and they're on the same level as not only Charlie, who he was on pace to become his stepdad, but the entire Minneapolis District 5 Mighty Ducks. These 12-year-old kids are on that same level, same speech. And to me, it was just an annoying and awful rehash of the Charlie Eden Hall speech, and also kind of the speech he gave to the preppy dean of Eden Hall at the scholarship revocation hearing. They kind of tried to go back to that same well, and I wasn't really into it. I didn't like it.
I think it's been more than 3 weeks because in episode 8, they had a montage of 6 wins where they were saying we need to win the next 6 to make it to states. But yeah, I feel like the messages were recycled and it didn't quite fit. in the Eden Hall scholarship meeting, he was like, I'll just tie this up in litigation and then it'll cost you lots of money. But this, I was like, why? Like, yeah, he should, I guess he was caught off guard, but that wasn't the right speech to make, I feel like.
Yeah.
And so I kind of was, when they're like, okay, cool story, still, the answer's still no, like.
We talked about this before recording. It's extremely annoying that he conveniently forgot all of his former lawyer training. Like, I get that they wanted the whole Alex come save the day trope, but, like, he really didn't need her to show up. He should have been able to handle the situation. And really all he needed to say was, like, I'm USA Hockey certified or whatever. I'm American Youth Hockey Association certified. Unless they're allowing an uncertified coach to be behind the bench, which is its own separate issue. That whole thing was so forced. And again, I get that they're trying to manufacture conflict, but it just seems so unnecessary.
I also kind of wish that the whole Alex and Stephanie moment was, like, at States, like if they were there. I don't know, it worked with it in the office or whatever, but just back to the point that I think there should have been more parents present at States just in general. I wish it was like they were both like, oh, our teams are at practice, oh, it's States, and then they started like talking or like drinking, you know, like, but like just closer to the action.
I did call the Stephanie redemption arc in the last time we recorded.
Is that really redemption, though?
I think it is, because she kind of had a proverbial come to Christ moment where she realized how much of a bitch she's been to not only Alex, but like to like her own family and like to her own coworkers. And it's like she was talking about it, and then she even like realized it. She's like, I'm doing the same thing that I'm trying to stop doing right now. And then she kind of gained some empathy for Alex. And so, yeah, I think it kind of was supposed to be a redemption type thing. It remains to be seen if she'll get to States and then she'll revert back to trying to be a saboteur. I mean, it seemed like she was supportive of Alex getting Bombay not in trouble. But, I mean, I guess, I don't know how long episode 10 is going to be, but it's entirely possible that she'll have an opportunity to sabotage the Don't Bothers before their inevitable face-off against the Mighty Ducks.
Right. How long would that take? I think they said there are 36 teams. Is it 36 or 32?
I mean, either way, they can easily just do a montage of them rifling through
right, the... But I mean, in reality, how many games is that? I guess it would go from 32, if it's 32, that's 16 matchups, down to 8, down to 4, down to 2.
They could have the teams play multiple games. Like, they could have them play, like, a morning puck drop, and then they could even play, like, 3 games. Like, they could have, depending on when the sheets open, like, it could be, like, a 6 a.m. game, a 2:30 game, and then, like, a 7:30 or 8 game or something like that. I mean, realistically, they could probably play at least twice in a day, and that would eliminate a lot of the teams right off the bat, just teams playing twice. I don't know if the whole thing is, like, a week long. Yeah, I don't know if it's a week-long thing or if it's just a weekend thing. I mean, they probably don't want these kids missing too much school or anything like that.
And then also Coach T was like, don't bother unpacking, which implies that, like, I guess teams who stayed would be there a couple days longer.
And if it's single elimination, then it's like, yeah, if they have 3 or 4 sheets of ice. So I guess that's 8 out of the 32 teams. So, like, if they have, like, 4 blocks of games, then they can have them all playing. And if it's single elimination, it's like if you play at 6 a.m. Friday or whatever Saturday and you lose, and it's like, all right, you head back. I'm assuming that the Don't Bothers are going to last longer than that. But one thing that kind of bothered me was, like, in the thumbnail of their preview for the next one, it looks like the Don't Bothers.
Looks like they just won.
Well, not only that, but it's looking like they're wearing the District 5 Minneapolis Mighty Ducks jerseys.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
So that kind of bothers me. Yeah. In the thumbnail preview, it was Logan, and it was him wearing the original Mighty Ducks jerseys from the first one.
Oh.
And so that is kind of
silly.
extremely forced and
enough.
annoying. And they made a big deal about how these guys are supposed to be their own thing. And they even magically had all yellow or gold matching helmets and matching uniforms with no explanation whatsoever when they got those or how. But just in episode 3 or 4, they were all of a sudden wearing matching uniforms. So now all of a sudden they're going to be wearing Minneapolis Mighty Ducks. I mean, maybe like Stephanie or somebody, or maybe like Coach T, maybe they'll like steal their gear and like freeze it like they did in D3. Mm-hmm. So Gordon will be like, well, I got these made just in case, or something like that. But that's still really forced and annoying.
Like when the current Ducks lose, and then they're like, we're going to have a legacy of losers. So then they're like, oh, whoever's the winner is automatically the next Duck. I want to talk about the little baby romances going on, because with Nick and MJ, that was cute and all, but how they can't have never talked to each other because Nick was the podcaster, and then magically MJ took over the podcasting empire when Nick was on the team. So how can it be true that they've never spoken before?
I don't recall there being a plot device where they hadn't spoken. I just think they hadn't spoken about their crushes on each other. I mean, in the very first episode, they're both kind of co-announcing the tryouts, and they're on the same podcast. Right. I kind of assumed they were dating in the first episode. I kind of assumed they were together when they were doing that at the tryouts of the Mighty Ducks.
Who's the main kid, Evan? He was like, you never mentioned liking her. You've never even talked to her. And he was like, yeah, I've never spoken to it. But it's like, yes, you have. But I did appreciate that, where he was like, here, you like each other. Go live your life. Because I feel like everyone always wanted to do that in middle school. And I appreciated the final Evan and Sophie thing. That I thought that was just done well. Because it was like realistic enough. I hated, as much as I hated Maya and Xander, and that whole trope was stupid, I thought they did it well with Evan and Sophie. And also, I guess she's going to be hurt. That sucks. But how do they not know that she's hurt now? She must get hurt in the next one.
Well, Evan knows, because they showed it, they teased it at the tryout. Exactly. Where she was grabbing her hamstring, and then it was magically a knee. So Evan knows, and Evan has known, and Evan even got her that special knee sleeve to try to give it extra padding. So Evan has known. I don't know how much the rest of the team knows, because she's kind of kept it a secret, but Evan's kind of her confidant. They're kind of each other's confidant. I don't know how much Alex or Gordon or any of the rest of the team knows. Yeah, I mean, they did kind of tease that in the preview, that she's got a lot of swelling and bruising on her knee.
And I guess also we're still waiting for the payout of Trevor back from the gala, when Coach T's like, put a target on his back or whatever. Like, I kind of thought that that's what this would be with Sophie, but then, like, it wasn't. That was separate. So I guess we're still waiting for, like, the cake eater moment.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, do we think that Evan is going to get a breakaway and be cross-checked from behind? I kind of had in my notes that I wonder if it's going to come down to a penalty shot again, and they're going to make Evan do the triple deke.
Yeah, it's gotta. I feel like they're going to cram as many things as they can into this. I hope there's a season 2, though. Comments saying, like, oh, I'm sticking with it, but I'm probably not going to come back for season 2. But I hope there's a season 2. I think that'd be cool. I'm not sure what else they could even do. It sounds like since they made it 2 states, and whatever happens, like, they're going to get through states, that was kind of the end goal. Unless they change the teams or something, I can't see what would even happen in season 2.
Well, my whole thing that I've been saying is that they're going to come up just short. If they fall just short, it's like, okay, well, then you're watching to figure out when are they going to get all the way over the top. And it could also become the kind of thing where, similarly to the original trilogy, where you see them in Pee Wee and they do win the state championship, or they do win the district championship, I guess you could say. In that, then we see them go international, and then we kind of see their freshman year of high school. It could be kind of like One Tree Hill, or a show similar, where we kind of see them progress from adolescence through at least high school. And they could probably get at least 3 or 4 seasons worth of content just watching them progress through middle school, high school.
I suppose that it would go along with the message of the show for them not to win. And I feel like they kind of hinted that, like in episode 8, where he's like, but it's okay if we don't, like, winning's fun, but it's not everything. So I guess it would be in line with the show to be like, hey, we made it to states, that's awesome, and we didn't win. But that also seems like we would be losing a plot device for Alex specifically, because at the beginning, when Stephanie was like, sure, you can leave early, it's only for 10 weeks until states, right? And then they end up making it to states. Them winning states would continue that plot of, like, she has to deal with it at work. Even though Stephanie kind of had this change of heart a little bit, I feel like it's not going to stick, just because that's a common thing where, like, you know, it's like the one night of drunken friendship and then it's kind of, like, erased when the hangover wears off.
I think the reception to this show has mostly been positive. I have talked to people that have said that they hate it. They say it's too cheesy and predictable. The acting is horrible. The hockey sucks, and they just think it sucks. And it's a terrible ripoff of the original. But I have had some people that said, like, yeah, the very first episode, I nearly cried. They were just that nostalgic about it. So I think for the most part, it's been fairly positive reception. So, I mean, even if they do win in episode 10, I could see it being the kind of thing where they continue it, because it's like, I mean, just like after the first original movie, he's like, hey, Ducks, no matter what happens, there's still next season. We've got a title to defend. If they do win, then it's like, all right, well, are they going to repeat? And then it's like, are they going to three-peat? Or like that kind of thing. So they do have a well to get back to, more content. But I still am sticking to the fact, I think that they're going to fall just short.
I mean, I've seen a lot of comments saying, oh, this is just like the Lauren Graham show and it's all about her. But honestly, like, I think it's cheesy, but I'm here for the cheesiness. I think it's good. I think it's like a cute show. I don't really expect it to be super good acting. Like, that's not really what it is, you know? I also don't expect the hockey to be super good. Anything other than, like, Miracle, I don't expect any TV hockey to be good because we're watching for the show.